Hey everybody, welcome back to another great episode of the Truck Show podcast. On today's episode, we are talking tires, specifically the BF Goodrich All-Terrain TA KO3. It's one of everyone's favorite all-terrain tires, and it just got a major update this past year, and we've got BFG's product manager, Brandon Sturgis, on the horn to tell us all about it. It's also been a pretty busy week. I just got back from a day on the lake bed at KOH, where I grabbed a few interviews, hung out with our friends at AMSOIL, and even ran into our other good friend, Emmy Hall. And this episode will also see what's in Holman's driveway this week. But first, we'll need to thank the companies that make the Truck Show podcast possible. The Truck Show podcast is presented by Nissan. Looking for a new pickup truck or family hauler? Then you'll want to head on down to your local Nissan dealership and put your eyes on the robust and reliable fresh and 25 Nissan Frontier pickup, or the all-new luxurious and capable 25 Nissan Armada full-size SUV. Either way, you'll be impressed that Nissan's legendary ruggedness comes with all of the features you'd expect, such as incredibly comfortable zero-gravity seats, modern features and styling inside and out, and available off-road packages, all for a price point that feels like a deal. Point your browser to nissanusa.com and see how Nissan has the perfect quality-built vehicle to fit your needs. And if you love your truck as much as we do, then why not give it the best synthetics money can buy? AMSOIL is not only the leader in synthetics, but also the first in synthetics, started by fighter pilot Al Amatuzio in 1972 with the game-changing 10W40 synthetic motor oil. AMSOIL continues to innovate with a wide selection of synthetics that are formulated, blended, and packaged right here in the United States. Available for just about any application, including automotive, motorcycles, power sports, industrial, racing, small engine, high mileage, just about anything with an engine. Whether you need oil or lube, grease, transmission fluid, car care products, and even filters or oil change kits, you'll find everything you need at amsoil.com, where you'll also experience a vast catalog of products and quick shipping. EGR USA is your one-stop shop for quality and well-thought-out accessories for your truck. For over 50 years, EGR has been the leader in truck accessories. Let's talk about the Roll Track, for example. This sliding tonneau cover features a low-profile 7-inch dent-resistant and serviceable micro canister that houses the retracted cover and maximizes bed space. In fact, it's so compact that it's compatible with the decked cargo drawer system. The canister boasts an industry-leading water management system that can drain up to 6 gallons a minute. The aluminum construction isn't only durable and scratch-resistant, but it also has a 700-pound weight rating and universal T-slots for accessories such as bed racks and rooftop tents. The central locking mechanism integrates with your factory locks and key fob, and the tonneau can be secured in any position along the rail. Other impressive features include an anti-pinch design, a smart ECU with variable speed control, and a button lockout feature to prevent tampering or theft. EGR's catalog has a whole lineup of truck accessories to personalize your vehicle and make it work smarter. Head on over to EGR USA today to discover what accessories they have that fit your truck or Jeep, and get a Roll Track for your pickup today. Hey, we know you guys are truck guys, but we also know you're knife guys, so the Truck Show Podcast wants to extend to you one of the best knife deals you'll find. Thanks to our generous partnership with Kershaw Knives, the Truck Show Podcast listener can get 40% off MSRP and free shipping over $50 by using the code 25TSP40 at checkout. It can be used more than once and even includes automatics. All Kershaw knives, regardless of price point, come with a limited lifetime warranty, and repair parts such as pocket clips, screws, and springs are available through the website. Kershaw knives include a lifetime sharpening, and the lineup has everything from EDC knives that can be used and abused for under $50 all the way up to high-end collectibles. Support the Truck Show Podcast today and get yourself a Kershaw knife. When it comes to amazing adventure content, how-tos, and great storytelling, only one brand is doing it right in the print magazine space, and that's OVR, Outdoor Vehicle Recreation. OVR is about getting out there in our vehicles to explore and discover the world around us. Get complimentary access for a year to the digital library or a discount on your print subscription today at ovrmag.com. Use the promotional code at Truck Show Podcast. The Truck Show Podcast survives off your reviews and sponsorships, so please help me to keep it free by leaving reviews and comments on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and by supporting our sponsors.
The Truck Show. We're gonna show you what we know. We're gonna answer what the truck, 'cause truck rhymes with the Truck Show. We have the lifted, we have the lowered, and everything in between. We'll talk about trucks that run on diesel, electricity, and on gasoline. The Truck Show, the Truck Show, the Truck Show. Oh, oh.
It's the Truck Show with your host, Holman.
That's right. This is another exciting episode of the Truck Show Podcast. In fact, this is episode number 7 of Season 3. Can you believe we've done 7 already since the beginning of the year? We're just keep on rolling, and time goes by fast. So I'm a big fan of BF Goodrich tires. I think they're great. I've used them for really decades on my personal vehicles. One of my favorite tires of all time is the BFG All-Terrain. Basically, the original one was great. The KO came out. The KO2 has kind of been the standard for a long time. Well, last year, BFG came up with an update called the KO3, and I think they're going to have over 100 tire sizes when it's all said and done. They've been rolling them out in chunks, but I wanted to know more about it, the development behind the scenes. So we invited BF Goodrich product manager Brandon Sturgis on the podcast to give us a little bit of background behind what went into the development of the BF Goodrich All-Terrain KO3. So here's my interview with Brandon. Joining me today is Brandon Sturgis. So Brandon, you're a product manager?
That's right. Yes, I'm the global product manager for BF Goodrich with our off-road tires.
Awesome. So I've been a longtime fan of BFG tires. Run everything all the way back to KOs. I remember when the KO2 came out over 10 years ago now. It was a big deal, and I know we're going to talk about the KO3 because it's been one of the most hotly anticipated tire releases probably in the last few years. And you guys have a lot more competition in this space than you used to. It's basically a category that BFG essentially created, and now everybody's in it. And I wanted to show you something. So if you're watching this on our YouTube video feed, I have this from BFG from the original launch of the KO2.
Oh, wow.
The old KO2 cutaway that's been on my desk. So when I was at Four Wheeler Magazine, this was on my shelf behind me. So this has been with me for a decade. So I pulled it out of the mothballs because I wanted to show you what I held on to for all these years.
Oh, that's super cool.
So, all right, before we get started, everybody gets a jingle. So you are the inside job.
It's the inside job, baby. Yes, it is. It's the inside job now. It's the inside job, baby. It's time for you to share what you do.
All right, so we love to have people who are brand managers or product managers, engineers, talk about their job on the inside for the average guys that are listening to the show. And like I said, BFG essentially created the all-terrain category. Do you want to walk us through the brief history of the all-terrain tire?
Yeah. Wow. So it's just really crazy for me to think about it that this tire was originally conceived 2 years before I was conceived. So 1976 was the very first year that BF Goodrich launched the very first radial all-terrain tire. I was just actually talking with somebody about that today, and honestly, a lot hasn't changed between then and now. Some things have changed, and we can get into those details, but others haven't. And really, when BFG launched that tire line, we only had a couple sizes, and they were not original equipment, not factory equipment sizes. These were aftermarket plus fitment sizes that BFG came out with, and we've grown from 1976 with 2 sizes to we're in 2025 now, and we're going to have well over 100 sizes with KO3.
That's pretty incredible. Now, KO2 was a huge upgrade over the original all-terrain in terms of durability, especially sidewall, chunking, better wet performance, better longevity. This has always been sort of the gold standard in the all-terrain category. It's usually, when somebody's looking at tires, it's usually the BFG all-terrain and maybe 2 or 3 others. And BFG is always on that list because it has been around for so long. The brand all-terrain really does have a really weighty reputation, and it's been proven over and over again. In fact, you guys have on the sidewall Baja Champion.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to go back to your original question, actually a little bit, I thought it would be interesting to share is that, the all-terrain TA KO was actually the 3rd generation. That was the 3rd generation of our tire line that launched in, sometimes we say 1999, in the data that I see 2000, but, for me, like officially it was 2000. The tire lines before them were just called radial all-terrain TA. And just some little interesting facts that maybe some of the viewers may not be aware of. And for some reason, and I don't know because I was, probably in middle school playing with my friends at the time, but the 2nd generation was also called the Radial All-Terrain TA. We did not change the name. We changed the look of the tire, we changed the performance of the tire, but we didn't change the name for some reason. So, yeah. But
And
going back to your, sorry, go
I was just
ahead.
gonna say, if I remember correctly, KO was kind of like Knockout, right? Like that was the follow-on, and it was sort of a little bit of like, we know who we are, and we're gonna build the best tire, and that's sort of where that came from, right?
Yeah, that's the first time I've heard someone say that KO was knockout. I like it. I'll take it. That's pretty good. Um, what that was the time that we introduced really what's called the K nomenclature
Yeah.
for our tires. And so we did it with our on-road tires. We did it with our off-road tires. K really stands for key feature, and then O stands for, and still stands for today, off-road.
Okay.
And so for us, the history of this tire was, started in 76 as being an off-road oriented all-terrain. And we've continued that till today of it being a really dedicated off-road all-terrain. And the all-terrain space is, honestly pretty, like you said, there's a lot of
Yeah.
competition. There's a lot of new brands. There's a lot of
It's even
new,
merged. I mean, there's categories within categories now. You have the extreme all-terrain for people who want more of a mud-focused or mud-looking tire, but without the drawbacks of a mud tire. That's even kind of made the all-terrain category even more niche and fragmented. And then you've
yep,
got some of the, you guys recently released the HD terrain
correct.
for the
Yep.
big trucks, which gives you an all-terrain pattern, but with really robust characteristics for towing, hauling, and all that as well. So there's a lot of nuance to the all-terrain category. And, going back to BFG kind of creating this, in the magazine world, when we would write editorial, it was always interesting because all-terrain was always all/terrain. But always in our style guide, if we wrote BF Goodrich all-terrain because it was the proper name, BFG would always be A-T or
Mm.
all-terrain because that was the proper name on the tire. So, I mean, even when you write from an editorial standpoint, BFG had a little bit of something special and different in the way that we referred to it because it was the first there and made the category. So even those little nuances on just reporting about the tires are different than the competition.
Well, that's really nice of you to say. We, appreciate that, those really pleasant comments. We don't like to, toot our own horn a lot. Like that's us. That's really not who we are. But, our really who we are is just trying to make sure that the people who buy our tires are happy. And that's really I keep going back to 76, right back then people were not happy with the offers that were in the market. And so that's why BF Goodrich came out with this radial all-terrain, and that really made a lot of people happy. And that's what we've tried to do each and every time we've iterated on this product. And it's difficult because you make people happy. Well, then how do you keep them happy? How do
Yeah.
you make them happy again? So you got to really know your customer and what they're looking for. And then these other spaces like HD terrain that you mentioned, that came off of a need for a specific need, a specific kind of usage for that customer, which was really what we call like a severe kind of extreme, all-terrain segment. So think of people who are they're driving pickup trucks, loaded, heavy duty pickup trucks, loaded, spending a lot of time on gravel roads, needing mud traction. Think about mining application, quarries, that kind of application, home builders, right? If you're building homes and you need good levels of traction and durability with your heavy duty truck that you're putting to work, that's what we built that tire for.
And even brands like AEV, it's original equipment for the Prospector XL now. I mean, that was something that they were really looking forward to.
Yep.
And what's interesting, too, to me is there's a lot of tire brands out there. I mean, we could fill up this podcast by just naming all of them. But the one thing that's unique about BF Goodrich, especially with your Ford relationship and partnership that happened through the Raptor lineup, Ford was always kind of shied away from those partnerships with tier one suppliers in terms of branding them with the vehicle. That really changed. I mean, obviously there is, some branding, Bill Blass, Lincolns, and Eddie Bauer, Explorers and things like that, but there hadn't ever been the aftermarket performance part that had been called out. when the Raptor was originally developed, it was a big deal. They wanted to have the BFG all-terrain on it. And that went on the same plate as Fox shocks. And so now across the entire Raptor lineup, whether it's a Ranger Raptor, whether it's a regular F-150 Raptor or the new Bronco Raptor, they all have BF Goodrich tires on there. And in fact, the launch partner was really the Ranger Raptor, and then nobody talked about it. So I remember going to the Ranger Raptor launch and went, wait, what is that? It's a KO3. And then I couldn't find any information. You guys kind of slow rolled that and let Ford have a little teaser there. But my point is that it wasn't really in vogue at the time for you to call out a tire manufacturer. It wasn't really in vogue at the time for you to call out other tier one sort of partners that you had. Ford made that a big deal where they said, no, we have Fox shocks. No, we have BF Goodrich tires. This is a big deal because they knew that would have credibility in the marketplace for their customer, instant credibility, because they wanted to make sure that people knew that this truck was special and that it was relevant and authentic. And that just didn't really happen. So for you to have a for lack of a better thought, I guess on my part, for you to have such an impact on a product that, from a driving standpoint, durability standpoint, all those things that they want to put your name next to theirs on the dealership showroom floor, on the brochure, that's a huge deal that really can't be understated.
Yep, absolutely. And we're really proud of that partnership with Ford. I mean, we've been there with them since the beginning of the Raptor when they first launched the Gen 1. And I don't remember all the minute details of that story, but what I do remember is that, Ford had to do a lot of justification to launch that truck,
Oh, yeah.
that Gen truck. I mean, it says F-150 on it, but there's a lot of differences between the stock F-150, I would say stock, the normal everyday person's F-150 and then the Raptor. And you could imagine what it's like to go in front of executives to say, hey, we need a completely different frame and we're going to need completely different this and completely different that. And, it's still going to say F-150 on the side. And I think, they really blazed a trail with that truck.
Yeah.
And I think they had a real clear vision of what they wanted that truck to be. I think that vision still is progressing. This truck is a really, really capable off-road truck. And part of that vision was putting the right bits and pieces on the vehicle to make it legitimate. And they built a legitimate truck, and we're proud to be part of that platform and have a legitimate tire for them.
And you look at it, one of the first pickups with 35s from the factory, then 37s from the factory, the Bronco Raptor 37s from the factory, all BF Goodrich tires. I mean, it's a big deal. And there's a reason that they chose those, and that's because the all-terrain has always been a really well-rounded tire. Quiet, good on the highway, good in rain, pretty okay in mud, which is not what its forte is, but enough siping so that you could still do, snowy or icy roads, things like that. And then just really durable, being able to, go over basically any terrain that you are asking of it. I've been on all of them except for the original all-terrain. So I've been on a KO, I've owned KO2s. I've got KM3s on my Jeep. We're going to put some KO2s on there as a back-to-back with before I put KO3s on there. And then I've had KMs, KM2s. And it was actually, everybody was kind of surprised that the KM3 came before the KO3 did. And it's been kind of quiet while people wait. Oh, the KM3. And it's a great tire. It's a fantastic tire. Now people are like, finally the KO3's there. Then you guys are rolling out all these sizes, and it's been, a chunk at a time. It seems like every quarter another 15 or 20 or whatever tire sizes drop as you get into the manufacturing and the tooling and kind of roll into it. I don't know that people really understand that behind the scenes. It's not easy to make 100 tire sizes and
exactly
have that tread or sidewall be the same performance across it. Could you talk to us a little bit about like what is involved in that process?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You aren't the only one that I've had to explain, well, why are we launching it the way that we're launching? Because our sales team is asking the same question. Why can't we have more sizes at once?
Yeah.
So even internally we have to tell people gosh, where to start? Like, well, first off, and I hate to start here, but it's something I've had to deal with. We're selling KO3 globally.
Yeah.
So we had to take into account for this launch, how do we manage all of the regulatory markings that we put on the sidewall of the tire? So we're going to sell this. It's almost easier to tell you which countries we're not going to sell it in versus which ones we are. And all these countries, especially countries outside of the US, have certain requirements. So you have to do testing, you have to submit paperwork to those countries in order to give their stamp of approval to say, okay, you are allowed to put our country's marking on the sidewall. And so it's funny. I actually came up with the launch strategy plan dealing with regulations while I was sitting in a lawn chair next to the lake that's in our neighborhood while my son and his friend were just out playing on the lake. Because I wanted to be there to make sure that, of course, no one drowned,
Yeah, of
right? Like,
course, of course.
that's like dad, dad level things to do. But while I was sitting there, I had some time, and that's where when I came up with, okay, well, I think this is a good launch strategy plan.
Yeah.
I was working when I wasn't supposed to be working, but anyway, that was one of the aspects that we had to take into account of what SKUs do we launch when, um, for regulations, and the ones that we launched earlier simply have less regulations that we had to work with
Okay.
than the ones that are launching later. And so hopefully that gives a little bit of peek behind the curtain to the
Yeah.
viewers of why isn't my size coming yet?
Yeah.
Well, hold on a second. We just had to get all that regulatory paperwork done. Once we get it done and we launch, then we're good, but we had to take the time to do that. So that's one aspect.
I would also say that you, because of the fact that you kind of have three areas of interest, right? Direct replacement, which is all the OE tire sizes that are going to go direct. Then you have the P metric or LT metric, I guess, the more heavy duty versions that are direct replacement or a little bit bigger. And then you got the flotation sizes on top of that. So within doing your regulations, you actually kind of have three streams of fitments on that same tire. I mean, that's a lot of nuance.
Yep, for sure. And so another aspect of, launching a new tire, and especially something as big with as many sizes and as many tires that get sold, you need molds, right?
Yep.
And we had to plan out, we can't go to our mold manufacturing folks and say, hey, can you make all of these molds within 1 year? It's just like not possible. So, on top of that regulatory planning, then we had to plan, for each size, we need X number of molds, and that's going to vary by size. And so, we had to work that out and kind of smooth that demand, that mold demand, so that we weren't spiking and really, kind of overcommitting ourselves in terms of how many molds that we had to make to launch this tire line. So that's another aspect. And then once we get the molds, we have to, it'll be our first time building that particular tire and that mold. And so our plants, need some time to ramp up that production. We have to build what we call pre-series or pre-production tires so that, hey, we have a small batch of tires that we can send off for that regulatory testing, if that makes sense. Then it takes time to get that regulatory testing back, and maybe we need to do a tweak here or there for a couple pre-production builds. And then once that's all done, the plant is good with building a few batches of tires, and then we got all the regulatory markings, and then we can say, all right, it's time to start production and build. Because the day that we start production, we want to make sure that the plant is 100% comfortable with making that tire, because we want to put out good products from day one. So that's kind of our process, a little bit of behind the scenes of, regulations, mold, industrialization at our plant. We had to really think about it with a big tire line like this to make sure that we get it right, because, we also are telling people we're going to launch these sizes on this day. Well, if we're wrong, then people are really mad at us.
Yeah.
So we wanted to, make sure we're holding our spot there.
So how long does a mold last? I mean, can it last for the life of a tire? Is it something that is consumable at the factory? I've always been curious about that.
Yeah, it's a consumable at the factory. I mean, our goal is to try to make them last as long as possible. There's a cleaning process that we go through, and I honestly can't tell you how often they're cleaned.
Yeah.
I think that may vary by size, but I do know that. Gosh, I wish my friends from the plant were on here with me. That could could help me answer that question, but I do know that there's a cleaning process, there's a cleaning schedule. Occasionally when they're not being used or when they're taken out to rotate in other molds, there's an inspection process to make sure that they're wearing properly because you can imagine when they're together
Yeah,
they're curing the tire, then they have to come apart so the tire can come out,
right.
and so there are moving parts, and you got to make sure that the mold is maintained throughout its life. And I honestly can't remember how many cures a mold can do, but it's pretty significant. And I do know that we have to replace molds and
Yeah.
maybe even certain mold parts over the life of the mold.
I think that's one of those things that people are, kind of fascinated in. They don't really hear about how the tire's made. And then the other thing is how, I mean, you have all these different tire sizes and you're talking about doing like the early prototype batches or the early runs. Is that kind of where you're dialing it in to see, how round the tire is? Because, a big part of it is making sure we call them round tires, but essentially what that means is making sure that you're sending out a tire that doesn't require a lot of wheel weight because it's really balanced with the material that went in to form it. And some manufacturers are notoriously bad and require a lot of weight to balance. Other manufacturers are really good at that. And it's a pretty hard process to nail, especially on the larger flotation sizes when you get up to 37s or 38s and larger.
Yeah, and that pre-production builds, you're exactly right. We are making sure so that the tire designer for each size has a tire specification, and it's a really cool 3D model that I can't really show you what it looks like, but it essentially tells our plant, okay, we want this rubber profile. It's got to meet this spec. We have dies that the plant has to cut in order to extrude that rubber in
Mm-hmm.
that right, just that right way. And, we have a lot of history knowledge, computer software that we use to help, design how those different components, those different rubber components, and then belt package components, what do they look like dimensionally? So how are they extruded? How are they built? And we aim to get that right the very first time with that very first build, but sometimes you do have to tweak that to make sure that you're getting that build right. And that's why we do some of those pre-production builds to make sure that we get that right. So that's kind of part of what that process is.
So what's the difference between a tread on a smaller tire, let's say, I don't know, for the sake of argument, maybe a 235, 70, I don't know, 16 or something like that, and then a 37 by 1250, 17. How, if I'm a customer and I go, I'm only a BFG person, I'm going to put every truck I have or every car I have that's getting all terrains, KO3s, whatever the case may be. How do you nail that experience on those smaller tire sizes, and keep it consistent through the bigger tire sizes? And then what's actually different? Is there a difference in tread? Is there a difference in the way it's constructed or the siping? If I looked at the treads side by side, would the smaller tire physically look different? And if so, how do you make sure that they're all KO3s?
Yep. So that's a really good question. And that actually makes me step back all the way back to when we first start working on the tire development. Our goal, and I know, personally, I'll say it like this. Our goal is to make sure no matter what size KO3 you're going to get, it's a KO3. From the smallest all the way to the biggest, when it comes down to, toughness, when it comes down to sidewall toughness, when it comes down to tread wear, when it comes down to snow traction, wet traction, we want all sizes within KO3 to be a KO3. So I wanted to kind of start there. And what that means is our tire designers need to say, okay, when we're working on developing the tire to see what's better, what are we going to change, we pick a couple of sizes, representative sizes amongst that whole size list. So at the beginning of the project, I have to tell our tire designers, from here to here, here's what I want in terms of sizes. And they pick a couple of representatives. What I can't explain to you is that, how we choose those sizes.
Sure.
Because
I'm sure it's proprietary.
That's right. And,
Yeah.
we feel pretty good about our design process. It's been iterated over time. Our research campus is literally 30 minutes from here. I get to spend um, time there occasionally. It's really fun to hang out with the tire designers, especially the tire designers that work on BFG. They're really super passionate. But there at that research campus, there's our BFG off-road tire designers. There's people who do the tire design work for original equipment manufacturers, the people that do tire design work for Michelin owns the BFG brand, so that research and development campus is full of really smart people. And that tire design iteration process has evolved at that campus over time. And anytime somebody learns something new or figures something out, they actually all share it with each other, which I think is really, really neat. BFG still has, BFG oriented tire designers that work on our tires, but we get some best practices that we can learn from everyone. Um, but so wanted to kind of share that detail, that little bit of behind the scenes. But to your question about, that 235 versus a 37 inch, each size is going to be, designed itself. So one good example that I can share with you is the noise treatment software that we run each size through. And so if you put those two sizes next to each other, you're going to notice that the tread pattern would be a little bit different.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because we have different pitches. And when I say pitches, you can look at the tread blocks and you'll see
Yeah.
the tread blocks are going to be a little bit different in size. Most people kind of don't really notice this. They're going on about their day and they don't notice, these
Yeah. Yeah.
little.
Yeah.
And so the way you arrange those pitches around the tire is really important for noise. So you talked earlier about how, generally our tires are, pretty good all-terrain tires, but also quiet.
Yeah.
Well, that noise tuning allows us to arrange those pitches for each size to try to minimize the noise as much as possible. And that's our own proprietary noise software. And we do that for each and every size. So before a mold is even made, we do that noise tuning, I would say, for a size, and that's going to change the tread pattern design slightly. But at the same time, that tread pattern also needs to meet the tread wear requirements, the snow traction requirements, everything like that. So all of that is taken into account when designing each size.
And I don't think the average consumer knows that the tires aren't just shrunk or scaled up or down, that they're actually designed. So, I mean, that just makes it even more amazing that you have over 100 sizes, because somebody had to hand touch each and every one of those to make sure that it is a KO3.
Yep. And another little tidbit I think that people might find interesting is, we have a book. It's the Tire and Rim Association. So that's the standard, here's the design standards that you follow when it's time to design a tire. Well, each and every size has a design rim width and it has a allowable rim width that you can work on. And we take it an extra step further of, we can buy data on vehicles.
Yep.
And so we know for a particular vehicle that uses a particular tire size, what is the rim width that vehicle uses. And what we can do is better design the footprint shape, better design the tire when we know, okay, this size is typically goes on these vehicles and these vehicles use this rim width, and that rim width may be different than the design rim width. So we really try to work that level of detail into the tire design for each size.
And you'll see that when you go onto like BF Goodrich website and you go to specifications, you can see there's usually a range for rim width for every tire. There's a sweet spot, and then there's kind of the bookmarks on either end of what's acceptable. And pushing a narrower rim, you're going to have a different contact patch. It's going to be much different than if you had a wide rim, and it's also going to change the sidewall and the flexibility and the squish and the handling and all those things. I mean, tire to tire is different. Tire to rim is different. Tire on a rim is different. Tire to different vehicle. It's really amazing everything that goes into creating a new tire. And it's funny. The BFG all-terrain has always kind of had a really familiar pattern. Like the tread pattern is something that is instantly recognizable, and you've seen some other manufacturers come in and kind of copy it to some degree. And if you think about it, I can't imagine there's anybody here who hasn't seen a BF Goodrich all-terrain tire pattern. But it's kind of like think of it as like a solid axle with two tires on either end. It's kind of at an angle, alternating through. Now you go to the KO3, and it still has that BFG look, but it's definitely different than what we've seen before. It's more modern. It's cool, but it's probably the biggest departure from like that traditional BFG all-terrain look. How hard was that to sell, knowing that people like the way their all-terrains look?
Yeah, I think it was my boss. He said this a couple years ago, well, quite a few years ago when we first started the project. He said um, the all-terrain, the BFG all-terrain tire line is one of the most difficult products for a product category manager to deal with because of what you just said.
Yeah.
It's got this history, this lineage, and so you know here at BFG, what I like to tell everybody, we're about form and function together. And so, aesthetics are definitely part of it. And we know that people, when they put a set of tires or they put our tires on their truck or their SUV, they want it to look right. And so we totally get that. But also, we want to manage the performance aspect of it too. And in that tread pattern design, some of it came from our work with OEMs, some things that we have learned over time working with the OEMs, especially when it comes to like straight line stability and straight line tracking. Some of it came from the need to improve wear and gravel cut chip. That was an area of improvement that we wanted to make going from KO2 to KO3. We also wanted to maintain or slightly improve. We ended up with getting a little bit better snow traction. We know that's a key customer benefit that people were looking for with our all-terrain. And so, what we feel, and we did a lot of consumer testing with various tread patterns. Our technical team came up with a lot of different ideas, some that were even way different than what you even looked at or see today with KO3. We came up with some ideas. We got consumer feedback, both from folks within our company. We have some BFG racers and performance team members that we really lean on because they don't work for us, but they work with us. And so we really value their opinion. And then, general consumers. And so we got feedback from all these people when trying to think, okay, here's what we need to do to fix this problem. Does everyone think that this looks the part as well? And so hopefully, we got it right, and at least the initial indications feel that we're on the right track.
Well, I think the new beefier sidewall, the more bold BFG, kind of like a KM3 on the side, is awesome. I love that. And at first, when I looked at them and I was like, what are those? Why is something other than, oh no, that's a BFG. Wait, that's a KO3 when I first saw the Ranger Raptor. And kind of walked around and in fact, I took a bunch of pictures. Like I was like, cool truck Ford. I need to find out more about these tires because it's a huge deal. But now that I've started to see them out in the world and on things, they're perfect. It's exactly what it needs to be, right? And it's modern, it's fresh, but it still has that BFG vibe and feel. And I'd love to walk through kind of the areas you mentioned, chip and cut, and you mentioned some of those things, areas of improvement. I'd love to kind of hit on that on KO3 versus KO2. And I know tire companies are really big on like the Venn diagram and going, okay, yep. So if we go this direction, what does it do over here for us? If we do this, are we compromising on noise? But seems like KO3 pretty much improved in all of the areas with not a lot of step back from where KO2 was, especially in the areas of sidewall durability and, again, cutting and chunking, which on really rocky kinds of terrain, you'd see that on a KO2. And it seems like the KO3s that I saw on some of the Raptor drives, I purposely looked at them at the end of some of the, course stuff we were doing, and they looked brand new. There wasn't any of that. So I kind of walk us through what are the improvements.
Yep. So I'll start with treadwear. That was a big focus for us. And just to give you a little bit of history about that, I mentioned before about how maybe some things haven't changed since 76. I can tell you one of the big things that has changed since 76 is that trucks are way heavier, way bigger, and way more powerful. The little tidbit I like to drop to people is like a modern heavy duty diesel pickup truck has double the amount of torque of a Porsche 911 turbo. Think
which is
about that.
insane. Yeah, and then you look at the
Think about that.
EVs. The EVs are, you get it, like, I know a lot of people who said, "Hey, I want to put all-terrain tires on my Rivian, for example,"
Yep.
and
And we're
they're
tracking that.
yeah,
Yep. We're
and
tracking that too.
they're wearing out those OE tires really like within 5 to 10,000 miles, and they want
Yep.
something with a deeper lug to last longer. That's going to give them a little bit more off-road capability, but it's a different animal on those electric vehicles with all that torque at 0 RPM essentially.
100%. And I like literally right here on my computer, I have a chart that tracks the torque evolution of heavy duty pickup trucks, light duty pickup trucks, the new EV pickup trucks. The EV pickup trucks are pretty capable, have a lot of torque, but actually the diesel heavy duties are still a little bit more punishing on tires than even what those EV trucks are.
Or what's
Um,
the new Ford is, I don't know, 1150 or 1250 now, I think, on torque, and
yeah,
it's like
you can get over 1200.
you
Yep.
stab the pedal in like fourth gear and it's still going to roast the rear tires. Like it's silly how much power there is on those trucks now.
So our engineers actually did a little calculation for me. Those trucks are putting more torque per square inch to the tire than a big rig.
Oh my gosh.
So when you think about that, right?
Wow.
Compared to the 911, back to my comparison with the 911
Yeah,
turbo, someone with a 911 turbo, if they get 20 or 25,000 miles out of a set of tires, they're ecstatic.
absolutely.
But if you tell a heavy duty pickup truck owner that's all you're going to get, they're not going to be happy with 20 or
The
25,000
standard is
miles.
really 50 at the bottom of what the expectation is. And KO2s were always known as really hard wearing as long as you kept the tire pressure right and you did regular rotations. I had sets that lasted 60, 70,000 miles before I had to change them out. But you have to care for your tires and kind of mileage. But I would say 50 is kind of the low end of what a modern vehicle owner is expecting from their tires.
Yep. And each application is a little bit different too. If someone's going to be driving a heavy duty pickup truck towing a fully loaded gooseneck trailer, I mean, they're going to get a different wear rate than someone who's maybe unloaded and isn't there's a lot that happens with that part that sits between the steering wheel and the seat.
Yeah,
So there's a little bit of variability there when it comes to wear. But we try to take that into account and make sure that we improve wear. And that was one of the first things. And it was good that we've been talking about this because it was really one of the first things that we knew we wanted to do going from KO2 to KO3 is, hey, we're going to launch this tire. Here's what's going on with the vehicle park right now. Here's what we think is going to happen in the future. And so we need to make a step improvement in wear to deal with all these trucks that are coming out with more power, more towing, more capability, EV trucks. And we did that, but we kept our mileage warranty the same. And we had some people like, why are you keeping the mileage warranty the same? And I have to explain everything that I just said now, that's why. The new Tacoma, for example, just look at the Tacoma and its power capability. I mean, it's vehicles like that are really driving a lot of difficulty for us in terms of
sure.
wear. And so, we kept the mileage warranty the same, but we needed to improve wear. And so that was one of the big things that we wanted to do with KO3. And it's probably best for me to go through it like that. I'll tell you kind of like
Yeah,
what performance wise, and then I'll tell you maybe what we did. I'll
great,
go through it
perfect.
like
Yeah,
that. Um, I mentioned earlier that we sell, well, KO2 today and KO3 in the future. We sell this tire around the globe. And what we notice outside of the US is that, frankly, a lot of people outside of the US spend a lot more time on unimproved roads. So think gravel roads, dirt roads. They're actually using the truck, using the tire. Not to say that doesn't happen here, but as a percentage, it's happened a little bit more in
well, we're
places like South
lucky. We have a really refined highway system, and
Africa.
even our rural road grids are pretty amazing. And even if you go to like a chip seal country road, it's still a lot better than places that you'll see internationally for sure.
Exactly. Like Michigan, I know Michigan has a lot of that and gravel roads, and Texas with the caliche roads. I
Yeah,
mean, we wanted to make sure that we can handle those caliche roads. So certain areas of the U.S. definitely has a little bit more gravel road usage, but when you think about Australia, I was there last year. I mean, they, they have a lot of rigs that are all dirty and they are all spend a lot of time on gravel roads. So we knew that second behind where we want to improve that gravel cut, we call it cut chip, because the best way to describe it is if you've ever walked on a gravel road barefoot, some people's feet are tough and can handle it, and other people's feet are not. And I can tell you that my wife, she has way tougher feet than me when it comes to walking on gravel roads. She's carrying the backpack and all the stuff when we're trying to get over to the beach, and I'm like, just give me the boogie boards and something light. I can handle it. And so, oh gosh, she would kill me if she knew I was talking about this right now. I better tell her later.
Yeah, you better. Although we're 95% male audience, so I think you're safe.
All right. And so, that was a big, I would say performance improvement that we wanted to make. And where gravel cut chip and then coming to the third one really is we know that snow is important. If you've ever flown into Denver, Colorado, the first time I ever did, you get off the airplane, you go outside and there's snow everywhere. And gosh, it's like KO2 country. And so we know that people are buying our tires because they like the snow performance. There's a three-peak mountain snowflake severe snow marking that we have on the sidewall. So we wanted to keep that. We wanted to at least
and that's a big deal because there's a lot of manufacturers who will claim snow performance, but they don't have a the mountains snowflake on the side of the tire. You guys actually have the testing to back up having that symbol, which elevates that tire into, especially in snow country, sometimes not needing chains if you're in a four-wheel drive vehicle, things like that. So there are some advantages to going down the road. And I know that if the KO3 didn't have that on there, the three-peak mountain snowflake, you would have an uproar and a mutiny amongst your owners because they really do rely on that in the high country.
And that was absolutely abundantly clear when we were getting more feedback on that. Definitely did not want to.
They're holding the pitchforks with the fire and the torch, and the fire was under, but they hadn't lit it yet. Oh no, you're good.
Right.
Okay, we'll put those away.
Pretty much, that's pretty much what it would have been like. But just so that you like maybe everybody can understand, if you want to get better wear and gravel, well, an easy thing to do is to take away your snow performance. And so just, think about that as we're kind of talking through things. Our tire designers are scratching their head of what we're going to do to make all this better. So we wanted at least equal or a little bit better. We were okay with a little bit better snow performance. In the end, that's what we got, and I can get into that a little bit. But then you can think about all the other stuff like let's say noise, right? Like people think that KO2 is pretty quiet. And I would agree with them. The only thing I would disagree with them maybe a little bit is that, or maybe people won't disagree with me, is that as KO2 would wear, it would maybe get a little noisy. And so that wear, we call it, what it looks like wear when worn, where the wear aspect after the tire gets some use on it. That was something that we also thought about as well. So we wanted to make sure that, hey, if maybe someone isn't rotating their tires as often as they should, it's really challenging being on a long wheelbase pickup truck, solid axle on the back. Those rear tires usually wear pretty evenly.
Yeah.
But then that long axle, that long wheelbase, the front tires are doing a lot of work around the corners. And so you get some, we call it heel toe wear on the shoulder. And rotations really help you, proper rotation. So just to plug that a little bit,
Yeah.
the best rotation pattern, I do it. I tell all my friends, you want to take the fronts, cross them to the back, and then the backs straight forward.
Yep.
If you do that, you keep the tires
What's
clean.
your recommendation as a tire manufacturer? Every 5,000 miles?
So with our off-road tires, we recommend at least every 5,000 miles. And, what I jokingly tell my friends is that, gosh, everybody needs a little time in the garage and maybe even a beer. So if you do it more frequently than 5,000, you can tell your significant other, since we're primarily male dominated audience here, that, hey, I need to spend a little bit extra time in the garage because Brandon said more frequent rotations.
Well, I like
better.
that.
Yeah.
Brandon said we're gonna go ahead and make that a thing on the Truck Show podcast. Brandon said.
It's funny. But yeah, but we know that some people aren't going to do that and aren't going to follow that to the T. And so we wanted to make sure that our new tread pattern that we had a better worn wear aspect. So not only does that help you with, your wear rate, so we wanted to improve the wear rate, but also that helps you with the noise progression. So, we don't want the tires to get louder over time as that, kind of irregular wear would happen. So that was another thought process into the tire design. Mud traction. We talked about mud traction
Yeah.
before. We're this is an all-terrain tire. It's not our mud terrain, but we do know that people, hey, they're buying this all-terrain because they want something a little better than the stock tires that came on their truck, the stock all-terrains maybe that came on their truck even. And so mud traction was key for us. And
Which is hard
um,
because you talked about the best way to, ruin your or the trade-off between, chip and cut versus snow. But that's also what is the best traction is more snow. So you want to pack the snow, but you want to clean out the mud, right? So
that's
so
right.
that's another balance in there where you're having to say, wow, we really want to be good in all these areas, and you're going, well, how are we going to do that? Because one has a direct impact on the other.
Yep, 100%. And that's good that you noticed that. And hopefully people notice that as well. I mean, I've seen a few videos of people testing our KO3s in the snow, and you're absolutely right. If you've ever made a good snowman or a good snowball, snow sticks to snow.
Yeah.
And so the tread compound, the siping design that we had, our goal is to make that snow stick to our tire. And a lot of people are noticing, look how much the snow is sticking to the tread pattern. Like, yeah, okay, yeah, you guys are getting it. It's coming through.
So how did you balance that need for mud performance? Because to me, that's you're starting to get into probably like Black Magic and whatever proprietary magic tire dust you have. But there has to be a way to do that because I know the mud performance is also improved on this tire.
Yeah, so kind of telling that story about all these different performances, and there's still a few more that we haven't talked about, but when you look at KO3 and compare it to KO2, one of the first things, and a lot of people have mentioned it, and they're really good eyes, obviously, is that the tread pattern design, especially in the center of the tire, is there's more rubber we're putting on the ground. And I think that's easy for people to understand. The more rubber on the ground, the less stress there is in that center area of the tire. That helps us get that wear improvement that we're looking for, and also really helps us with that gravel cut chip improvement that we're looking for. So you can imagine, like, if your feet were bigger, aka more rubber on the road, it puts less stress on your feet, less stress on the rubber. So if you can take stress away from the rubber, that gives you that better wear and that better gravel performance. But doing that, that makes it easier to clog up or to pack the center part of the tire with mud. Well, one of the things that we have learned through off-road racing, the mud traction testing that we do, the types of mold that we use that allow us to do what I'm about to tell you, which is that serrated shoulder design, the design of the shoulder, is really super important to soft soil traction. And I say soft soil traction because you could be in wet grass, you could be in mud, and when there's mud, there's the awful Carolina clay mud that we have here. There's I call it good mud. I grew up in Maryland, which was like normal brown, mud. There's all sorts
Yeah,
of
all
types of
sorts of
mud.
mud. Yeah.
And so that's that serrated shoulder design, and we actually even adjusted the mud phobic bars on KO3 to make them a little bit bigger. So that area of the tire we found, we adjusted that, and if you put a KO2 next to a KO3, you should see that the lugs that stick out, they actually protrude
Yeah, they
out a little
alternate.
bit. Yep. And we have that same alternating pattern that we have between KO2 and KO3. It's just that the pat the 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 pattern is a little bit the pattern's not different, but the size of those lugs
It
is different.
feels like it's more closely related to like a KM3 because when you first see a KO3 sidewall and you don't see the tread, you kind of look at it and you're going, there's a lot of KM3 callouts, whether it's the logo, whether it's the thicker sidewall lugs, whether it's the offset on the shoulder. And you can kind of pick that up. And I think the KM3 has a really successful sidewall design. So for the KO3 to kind of take some of those characteristics, I think is great because it's a great looking tire from the side.
Yeah. And to be honest, we learned a lot when we developed KM3 about mud traction. We spent a lot of time with different tread patterns because that was a key focus for that tire line. Mud wasn't as key for KO3. It was key that we didn't degrade the performance,
Sure.
but it's not a key, it doesn't have mud in the name. It has all in the name.
Yeah.
So mud is part of the equation, not the main part of the equation. So when we developed KM3, that serrated shoulder design, the way the tread pattern is designed to try to evacuate the mud, we learned a lot there. And actually some of that we applied with KO3. And so, the fact that we have, these different tire lines, they kind of help us a little bit with that tire design iteration process.
Kind of adds to the corporate knowledge, I guess, of rounding out your offerings. Now let's talk about I guess we're kind of going from tread pattern, and we kind of touched on sidewall. Two things that I think are really important is the sidewall toughness, which I think is great. Any improvement there is always going to be good. I'll do a trip that is a 400, 500 mile off-road trip. And, I've got KM3s because I know that sidewall is super, super tough. And I was happy to see that the sidewall toughness was improved. And now you guys have had the 3-ply sidewall. That's been a core tenet of your, terrain lineup for a long time, but whether it's the all-terrain or the mud terrain. And I even remember having a conversation with engineers. It was probably 10 years ago, maybe more. Maybe it might have been 12 or 13 years ago, where they said, there's some new technology out there, like carbon fiber and some other things that we could put into a sidewall. We could go to a 2-ply. And I was like, absolutely not, because you've done such a good job of branding. There's no way to market 2 as better than 3. I don't care what you do to your sidewall. Especially on those bigger sizes, your customer has grown to really kind of demand that. And I know that going to a 2-ply sidewall lightens the tire up and has some other advantages, flex, things like that. But the BFG customer doesn't want that. The BFG customer wants a 3-ply sidewall, but you were able to even improve the sidewall with some technology from your KR3 racing tire, right?
Yeah. So I think everybody knows that we spend a lot of time down in Baja racing tires, and sidewall durability is super important there. The Dakar race, BFG sponsors.
I was just out there with the Ford team, and they were running KR3 37s, the same race tire that you see down here. I was shocked that that's what they were running on the Raptor T1 Pluses. I was like, oh, I know that tire. I figured it'd be some like weird, European rally tire or something, but no, it's a KR3, and it was actually amazing watching the BFG trailer down there. Everybody's on BFGs, and the assembly line they have there to mount. Yeah. Oh, it was amazing. I just stood there and watched for like 20 minutes because I was like, man, what an incredible! It's like a factory in the middle of the bivouac, and it was great. So a side story, but yeah, it was the same KR3. I'm like, I know that tire.
Well, and I mean, what's clear to us there is that sidewall durability is super super important, right? If you can keep and it's not to say that we never get a flat in any of those races. It definitely can happen, but what we're trying to do is to make it happen less or not at all, if at all possible. And for us in this, I call this the category that our KO3 is in, the off-road all-terrain category. For us, sidewall toughness, sidewall durability is a must-have. That's something that we have seen. To your point, like customers are really, really all about the sidewall durability. It's part of the reason why. Just as an example, I know there was a customer of ours that loves the sidewall durability of our KO2s because he drives through like a wheat field. And, it's just these random usage cases. It's so nice to hear from our customers and tell us how they use their tire because, this guy said, he's like, I used to get flats all the time, but as soon as I started using KO2s, I didn't have flats anymore. And so, to us, that's part of that sidewall toughness aspect of this all-terrain, off-road all-terrain category that we want to continue on with KO3.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a tenet of what customer expectations are for BFGs, is that they are a tough tire on top of everything else.
And just coming back to the other performances that I was talking about earlier, and I talked a lot about the tread pattern and that I think that's a easy thing for people. Well, of course, it's a very easy thing for people to see, why we made the tread pattern in the center of the tire, a little bit more rubber on the road, and then the shoulder design. So it's easy to call that out. But one thing that you can't see is that we have a brand new tread compound that we're using with KO3. And we had to make some investments at our plant in order to be able to use this modern, I would say modern components that we put into the shred compound. It wasn't like, oh, we can add those in and go. No, no, we had to make some investments so that we could process that new rubber compound because we got a lot of benefits out of this compound, but one of the negatives is that it's harder to process. And if you don't have the right equipment, the right setup to be able to process it, then all those benefits kind of go out the door because then you can't even use it. So, we had to make some investments in order to make the tire better. And that's something that, people aren't going to know when they're standing at the tire retail
Yeah.
shop there oh well, maybe it's a little more expensive than it was with KO2 or compared to some of our competitors, but I can tell you that we had to put some money in, some investments to make this tire what it is really.
I don't think anybody's going to mind at the end of the day. BFG is a premium brand, and there's a brand promise that comes with putting a set of BFGs on your vehicle, especially for people, in my world where we're off-roading, we're overlanding, we're overweight, we're in all sorts of terrain. I mean, on a 400-mile trip, you could go through rock, sand, dust, silt, mud. I mean, you hit everything. So you have to have a durable tire. Spending, a few more bucks per tire isn't going to be a big deal when I'm, hundreds of miles away from anything and I got to get home. So to me, it's worth it. And it's exciting to see that, that was worthwhile for BFG to put those investments in to make sure that the product was even better than what people are used to today.
Well, and for me, I mean, I think this is probably you want to feel good about your purchase. You want to feel good about what you're paying for. I'm the type of person who wants, something. I'm okay with spending the money on something that's high quality, that's gonna last a long time, that's gonna really work for my needs. And for us, yeah, I hope at least this segment, or at least what we're talking about, lets people know a little bit behind the scenes, what we did to put into the design of this tire to make a legitimate tire, that's going to be useful, last a long time, really durable sidewalls. We want people to get their money's worth out of this tire, and maybe there's some options, a little cheaper. Maybe there's some that's a little bit more expensive, but um, you know, we feel really good about the product that we made. We think that we've made something that's really good, better than even what we had with KO2, and hopefully people see that.
Well, in the more affordable option is probably your trail terrain TA, which sits just under the KO3. Of course, if you need something more aggressive, there's the KM3 mud terrain TA, and then you've got, again, going back to the HD terrain, which is the right all terrain for a working truck, and those big heavy duties, and the big tire sizes are direct replacement. So just to see how I don't you often think of KO3, KO2, KM3, but seeing and reminding people that HD terrain exists. And by the way, I've driven on them, and they're fantastic, fantastic tires for a full-size truck. And then on the other end of it, the trail terrain TA, which is kind of your daily driver all-terrain. It's not going to be as rugged and durable as a all-terrain for those big off-road trips. But if you got a dirt road to your ranch or to get home, and you need that extra traction, and you don't require a really beefy sidewall, you need a little bit more efficiency, that's a fantastic tire too. So, I mean, you guys really have a nice lineup in the off-road space.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing those up because we're we've got additional product. We got these new products or newer products in the market with HD terrain and trail terrain. So maybe our portfolio looks a little bit more complex, but when we see people when people see terrain on the sidewall, first we want them to think off-road. So BFG terrain equals off-road, but each one of those products, trail terrain, KO3, HD terrain, KM3, specifically designed for a certain application. And I think you just did a great job of explaining kind of what each and every one of those products are for. trail train for me, that's actually what I have on my truck. I have a older Toyota Sequoia, and
No, perfect tire for
this is
that.
I'm mostly taking my kids to soccer practice, driving back and forth. We do a little bit of camping, ride dirt bikes, so get into some, I would say, light
Yeah.
off-roading. It's exactly what trail terrain is made for. And it's for that person who, looks at our portfolio and says, yeah, KO3 is like for sure too much for me. And there's I think there's a lot of people out there who are like me with my application where trail terrain is really, really a great option.
This has been awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time. I mean, I think we kind of touched on a lot of different topics. People are curious about tires. I mean, it's the probably the one change next to maybe shocks that you could do on a stock vehicle and see the most improvement. Usually when somebody comes to me and they say, "Hey, I just bought a new XYZ. What's the first mod I should make?" And depending on their use case, it's either going to be shocks or it's going to be tires. And it's even from driving. I mean, I've been a journalist for almost 25 years in automotive, and I've driven them all, and I can tell you, even just driving two different models of the same vehicle with a different tire, for example, some of the off-road packages, the directional stability is awful on their tire that they have there, or they've cheaped out on a thin sidewall, and so it might be a decent tread, but then you get punctures when you're off-road testing the vehicles. And the tires are the number one thing that I think can let you down on a modern vehicle. And, there's not really any lemons out there anymore. There's nothing that's really going to leave you stranded like it was. It really comes down to that tire choice. It's what you interact with the most when you're accelerating, you're turning, you're braking, you're off-road. It's the thing that kind of allows the performance of the vehicle to hit the ground. And I think it's maybe one of those under thought about things. I mean, you need tires, but anytime that we can kind of highlight some of the dirty parts that make your vehicle enjoyable, we like to do that. And again, I've been a big fan of BFG for a really long time, and super happy to have you on the podcast, kind of walking us through the new tire line.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And it's clear you know your stuff. When you pointed out that AUV, that Prospector was on the HD terrain, I was like, oh, this guy knows.
Yeah, no, I do a lot with those guys, good friends of mine, and we had talked about some of the other options that are out there. And when they debuted it on the Sierra Grande concept at SEMA a couple years ago with those 40 HDs, it was like, oh yeah, okay, that's great. And it really does serve that purpose and that need. And there's a lot of those guys out there who need a high quality tire. And in some of those sizes, it's hard to find. There's only a few options out there, and if one manufacturer is constrained, you're kind of stuck with the other, which might not be the best choice. And it's nice to have options, and it's nice to have something with a company that you can rely on.
Very cool. And something else I can plug since we're talking about
Yeah,
these small sizes or these big sizes. We just launched a 42-inch mud terrain KM3 on a 17-inch wheel. So we just launched that January
awesome.
1st. I know there's some people asking about some 42-inch
Oh yeah,
DOT kind of tires, so we got that. And then we're gonna have a few more 40-inch sizes coming out. Another one in HD terrain on a 20-inch wheel. We're gonna have 40-inch KO3s, which I think is
which is
pretty cool.
awesome. That's
Yep.
that's super cool.
We'll have a 39-inch KO3, and we're gonna have a 40-inch KM3 all coming here in the next couple
And
months.
really, going back to vehicles being more heavy and what people are into these days, and getting some of the guys doing bigger brakes because they're doing a 1-ton conversion or whatever. Sort of the new tire size that people have really been waiting for. 37s on an 18, and I believe I saw that coming in KO3 in the tire lineup. I'm really excited about that size. Also 38s. That's a really sweet spot of the market right there right now. Is there's guys who are maybe on the upper end and they don't want to go to a 38, but they want to have a bigger wheel to do a big brake kit on their vehicle. That 3718 is going to be fantastic. And then the folks who want to move up to a 38 to have a really good 38 in an all-terrain is pretty awesome. Of course, you just mentioned a couple other tire sizes that are pretty exciting.
Yeah, the 18-inch wheel. I'm right there with you. It seems like yeah, it kind of gets back to what we were talking about earlier. The bigger vehicles, they need bigger brakes now. And so I think we're going to see a transition from 17 to 18 in certain spaces. For KO3, we're going to have a 37-inch on an 37 1250 18, both load range F for the heavy duty
Nice.
truck folks, and then we're actually going to do also a load range C.
For the Jeep
So for
guys.
people, the Jeep guys or somebody with an F-150.
Oh, I mean, you're just saying everything that makes me get excited over here. You know, in case anybody was listening and they're like, "How can you get excited about tires?" Oh no, I'm excited. Definitely excited. Again, Brandon, really appreciate your time. Thanks for spending it with us, because I love these kind of deep dives and behind the scenes, because it gives, I think it helps listeners kind of really understand the people behind the product and really what goes into it, and just, you get that increased appreciation for all the efforts that you guys have done to reinvent the KO lineup.
Yeah, Sean, thank you so much for having me. Really, really, really fun conversation with you for sure.
Appreciate it. Thank you. What a cool interview with Brandon over at BFG. So cool. If you want to find out more about the new all-terrain KO3 or the rest of the BF Goodrich lineup of tires, head on over to bfgoodrichtires.com. So I just got back from hanging out at KOH for the past day or so. I was out on the lake bed, and I just went to go look around, see some people, just had an opportunity to go. I knew our friends at Amsoil were there, so I hooked up with them and ran into our friend Emmy, and I just got a couple quick interviews. It was a freaking madhouse. I forgot how crazy it was. In fact, it's way crazier than it's ever been. There had to be, 80,000 people there on a lake bed that normally has nothing on it. And I'm really impressed with how KOH puts everything together and how well organized it is, because it's absolute madness. And once the sun goes down, it gets even crazier. You can see all the people up on the trails and Chocolate Thunder and all those different places with the lights and fireworks going off everywhere. And I mean, it was just unbelievable. And I remember last time I was there's no cell service. Everybody had Starlink. There was Wi-Fi around. I got to hang out in the VIP Warren tent, which was really cool. Thank you, KOH, for letting me do that. So I've got a few interviews, but first, got a jingle.
Where is that? I've got 4 big tires and some beadlock wheels. I've got 4 big tires and some beadlock wheels. I've got 4 big tires and some beadlock wheels.
So what's crazy is, the UTVs are fast, and inside the Warren VIP tent, they had a huge TV, so you could watch the live feed, and our friend Emmy was on that, and then she was doing stuff on stage all day, so that was cool. Watched our friend Brad Lovell in his Bronco Raptor, took first place in one of the first events. Chad Hall, who I used to race with the Chevy ZR2, he was in second place. So it was great to see some friends out there. Thoughts go out to Jim Horn, who they had a gap jump this year, and he was in a Gladiator, and he didn't make it to the other side. So that looks like pretty gnarly when he hit that and didn't make it over the gap. But I guess he's okay. Saw him on Facebook. So shout out to him and his family and everything. It's racing, man. All sorts of stuff can happen out there, but it was a great event. Great to go, but you really have to be dialed. I think the people who have been there a lot are, they kind of have it down, but man, I can understand if you were somebody new, you would just be completely overwhelmed. But they did a great job. Lots of amazing vendors out there. Also had food booths everywhere and music going on, and it was just a great vibe. So I really enjoyed it. So first up is Steve Von Segren from Bilstein. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Sean.
So with Steve Von Segren from Bilstein, I'm out here on the lake bed with about 100,000 other people.
More than that.
More than that?
More than that.
Occasional mud hole, bunch of food. It's gotten better. I haven't been out here for several years, and there's like food vendors, and there's all these people that have like connectivity thanks to Starlink and all that kind of stuff. So we're standing in
number 84 is on prize below truck.
Number 84. Number 84. They're getting their prize.
Stage 5.
So we're standing here in the vendor row, and are you guys just being vendors? Are you sponsoring racers out here today?
Yes to all of that. Right now, I'm on pins and needles because Doug Mittag,
We love Doug.
our one of our sponsored racers is running in second place on the 4th lap of the race, and he's about 3 minutes back.
Awesome. Okay.
So he could win, he could podium, or he could break the car and,
and that's it.
And DNF. So that's why I'm a little bit nervous right now, but it's exciting. And we also have Caden Wells out there racing. He's 9th in his class and I think 30th overall right now.
Right on. So obviously there's customers walking by. Some of them are UTV people. Some of them are truck people. Do you find that the people that run your shocks on the UTV side are also customers on the truck side, or vice versa?
I think we're finding that it's a little bit of a new customer that maybe isn't familiar with the background on the brand and the rich and successful motorsport history that Bilstein has. So that's a good problem if you're a marketer like me, because you have a story to tell, right? It's not just here's the new thing, you know us. It's just another product. It's reaching way back and having a diverse story to tell.
So we've had you guys on the show a bunch of times and sponsored the show, so we were pretty familiar. I think the audience is pretty familiar with your technology. We've got JCOs, RCOs, and some of your top-end shocks. You got the new quick adjuster models that came out on the truck side. How is the technology shared? Is there between UTV and truck? Is that trickle down one way or the other?
Yeah, that's a great question, because the technology that we're using on the UTV dampers did come from the 8112s, which was really a Toyota product at first. So we were able to take that technology and expand on it by going fully aluminum with the product.
So I know the UTV line, you guys only got super serious about the really high-end stuff a couple of years ago. Obviously the 8100 series includes the 8112. We have a lot of experience on that, and things like Tacomas, which they're transformative when they're mixed with a upper control arm and a rear external bypass shock. It's like the best of everything. It just makes a stock truck unbelievably capable. Have you started to see people seeking out Bilstein? Because there's other players that have been in the UTV, ATV space for quite a long time at a more prominent level, I think.
Yeah. The 8112s are definitely all of a sudden coming on their own and becoming really popular. And I think it is a little bit of the handshake back and forth between the two sides. We just rolled out 8112s that are all aluminum and adjustable for the new Bronco.
Oh, people are going to love that, especially with being aluminum from a corrosion resistance standpoint, lightweight, and then also heat dissipation too. So I'm sure that's going to be a pretty popular product. Now, the aluminum body shocks, is it starting on Broncos? Is there anything else you offer it on, and will it be expanding to other applications?
A little bit top secret, but yeah, there will be more. Definitely.
There will be more, he says.
For now, it's UTV, and it's the TRX shocks on the Rams, or I guess RHO now.
Yeah.
The aluminum's a little bit new for us.
Awesome. Yeah, it was either reserved for extruded shocks on hot rods or the old Blackhawks back in the day.
Go back to the extruded Blackhawk. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So if people want to find out more, Bilstein.com.
Yeah, BilsteinUS.com technically is the North American one, but either one will take you to the right place.
Awesome. Good to see you. Thanks.
Good to see you.
And next up, right across the AMSOIL booth. By the way, it was really cool. After hours, AMSOIL had a Supercross viewing party at the main stage, and they've got like a big bonfire out there. And Brad Lovell came out, and he was signing little AMSOIL Brad Lovell Broncos for kids and stuff. So that was really cool to see. And AMSOIL had this like full-size beer pong, so it was like buckets with big giant balls, and so a bunch of people were playing with those. So it was just fun to see everybody kind of hanging out. There's parties going on everywhere, and it was like outdoor SEMA. So anyway, here's a quick interview with one of the dealers for AMSOIL. So I'm wandering around KOH, and I came across the AMSOIL booth. And of course, AMSOIL is one of our big sponsors of the Truck Show podcast. And I came across a gentleman who's a dealer for AMSOIL. What's your name?
My name's Holden Filmer.
And where is your dealership out of?
Out of northern Utah.
So what brings you to California? Because I understand that you've been coming to KOH since the beginning almost, in like 16 years?
Pretty much since the beginning. I think it was 2009 when we first came out here.
So what made you decide to come out to KOH?
I saw it in a magazine called Crawl a long time ago and just decided to take off, come out and see what it was all about.
Were you selling AMSOIL at the time? Did you come as a vendor?
Yep, we came out here as the vendor, and we've been working it ever since.
So what's the difference between where it's at today from where it was in the early days? I remember I was at Four Wheeler Magazine, and it was a bunch of friends who started this basically. I haven't been here in maybe 4 or 5 years, and I cannot believe like how crazy it is.
Yep, it is absolutely insane to see how much bigger this race and King of the Hammers changed this industry. Not only the industry of off-roading, but the automotive industry in general, and just how much this has grown is amazing.
So when you're looking at the racers and the products that AMSOIL offers, and then you look at the consumers that come by here as well, because you're really supporting both sides.
Right.
What are the fastest moving products? What are the products that have maybe in the beginning were new or unknown that's like the go-to everybody has to have, or what you put people on to have the best experience?
I'd say to have the best experience out here at KOH, you need a good gear oil, you need a good transmission oil, and you need a good engine oil. We got that covered with our Dominator Racing 1550. We've got a full line of automatic transmission fluids that handles the heat, handles the stress and the extreme out here at KOH. Our gear oils are great. We've got a great shock load.
I love the severe gear, especially in the easy fill pouches. That's what I use. And there's actually some new viscosities, because in the beginning it was, I think, 75-140 or 90-140?
Yeah,
or 75-90? There's a couple of them.
It was 75-90, and then it's expanded from 75-90 to 75-140.
Yep.
We have an SAE 250 for the big time, what a lot of the racers use out here in their differentials.
And I think now there's even an 85. There's one that kind of splits the difference. So there really is a viscosity for just about anybody.
Yep. Like I tell people, if it moves, Amsoil has something that will lubricate it.
Also, if it sits, because you've got a lot of car care products as well.
That's true. That's true. If it sits, and that's one thing people don't understand is a car that sits it's just as hard on it as running it every day.
Sure.
Because you get a lot of condensation, and it's hard on it too.
Well, you got to make sure that the oil stays up, in the cylinders where they're, it doesn't drain all back down into the sump where you have a dry start condition or something like that.
Right.
I'm kind of curious, because we don't talk to dealers all that often, but one of the newer product lines that have come out is the car care product line. I'm just kind of curious, is that something that you've seen some really good success on? Are people, they love the Amsoil name, and so every time Amsoil comes out with something, they're like, I'm going to try that because I've had such a great time with everything else.
Yep, it's just like anything with Amsoil products. When they come out with something, they want it to be the best, and so they're going to put the best into every product, whether it's their racing oils, their everyday driver oils, or their car care products. They're going to put their best into it, and they're going to make it the best it can be.
So how many years have you been an Amsoil dealer now?
About 20 years.
Wow. How's the company changed over time, or is it the same experience today as it was back then?
It's a great experience with the company. Highly recommend Amsoil. Highly recommend the company. Good to work with. The engineers back in Superior, they are absolutely on top of their game, coming up with new products. When new vehicles come out, they got state-of-the-art dyno rooms back there that they research, test, and engineers the oil to be the best it can be for the specific product, whether it's a Can-Am, whether it's Polaris, a Ford, any kind of vehicle, whatever you got, they're going to engineer the product to go in that vehicle to be the best it can be.
And now they have the oil change kits. They come with the filter, the gloves, the funnel, everything you need, put in your year, make, model, and you get a box that comes to your door, and you don't have to get one extra thing for it.
Nope, you don't. You don't have to make 2 or 3 trips to the store. If you forgot something, it comes to you. You got everything. It's simple. You just go online, amsoil.com, select your year, make, model. You can decide to purchase right there online, and they'll UPS ship it right to your door, and you'll have everything to do your oil change.
Easy as that?
Easy as that.
All right, man, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Hey, appreciate it. Thank you.
And then I wish I could have gotten some more interviews. I went and talked to a few companies, and people were like, oh, so-and-so would do it, but he's not here right now. Oh, he's out on the race course. Oh, yeah, maybe come back tomorrow, and I was there for one day. So I was kind of bummed. I only got a couple interviews until I saw Emmy Hall, and it was right at the end of her shift of doing all of the announcing and stuff. So I grabbed her real quick, and I made her do another interview with us because you guys seem to love Emmy so much. I'm like, you never have too much Emmy, right? So here she is, Emmy Hall. All right, so I'm here at the Hammers, and all day long, over and over and over again.
You heard me!
All day long. So I figured I'd come and say hi, since everybody who listened to the previous episode, like 400 people, are like, we like Emmy, bring Emmy back.
They like me better than you.
So I am mad at you. I do have a bone to pick, and that is, I listened to you all day long today, and not once did I hear over the loudspeaker mounted parameters.
I know. I really should have been able to say it because it was all over Hammertown. It's not just like going to YouTube. It's going to all over this. Like 80,000 people could have heard it, and I did not say mounted parameters.
Mounted parameters.
Oh, sorry, mounted parameters. I haven't heard it in a long time.
So mounted parameters, if that would have been a dog whistle to all truck show fans here.
That's some old school. That's some legit old school stuff.
So how did you fall into this job where you were the voice of Hammers all day today?
I don't know, honestly. Like one year they just asked me to do it, and then they kept asking me back, and I'm like, are you sure?
Because they didn't have anybody better who would do this?
100%.
And you live like 30 minutes away?
Yo, that's what's great is that I don't have to stay on the lake bed with all the fireworks and the dust and everything. I can go home, which is rad.
Oh, it's crazy. Like I haven't been here in a few years, and I was driving up, and I'm like, what in the F is this? It is insane. What is it, 120,000 people here?
I'm not sure. I think last year it was 80,000. And the fact that this is just the first weekend of desert racing, we have then...
It feels bigger than that right now.
Yeah, it totally does. We have qualifying on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the big races, like that's when people are going to come out. Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Well, it's crazy because obviously there's an interview going on behind us, but you can hear fireworks, you can hear the cars going by. Like it's a total party here.
Yeah, it's nuts. People have been trying to get me to go up to Chocolate Thunder at night, and I'm like, absolutely not.
Well, here's funny is I'm standing here, kind of waiting for you to finish work for the day so I can come bother you. And you had like 4 people come, like, dude, I totally got a room in my back seat to go to Chocolate Thunder. And I'm like, don't say yes to any of that. That's a horrible idea.
Well, no, but if they're out pre-running the loop that they did today, I would like to see what the actual course was today for the desert race, because I did have a fleeting thought about bringing Buddy out here, and then when the map came out, I was like,
So I looked at the map, and I'm like, I'll come here after the madness is over, and then see what the course looks like.
Yeah, we should actually do that. We should get whatever's in your garage, and then I'll take the 392.
It's broken right now, but go ahead.
What was wrong with the 392?
Bend the front axle.
You're a nerd. Because I don't.
What's wrong with Buddy right now?
Nothing's wrong with Buddy. Buddy is 2.0.
Is the engine ready to go? Is it done?
Yeah, he's in the parking lot.
Sweet. Can't wait to go fart in it.
Don't you dare. I'll be so mad. No, he's running great. Fox style in my shocks, which is great.
Do they feel good? Because I know you we were talking about you kind of had to go to the base tune.
Yeah, no, it's great. The reservoirs make a huge, huge difference.
All right, they're spraying champagne on each other right now, and then the whole crowd. The group before them had a kid that was underage who they couldn't give him champagne, so they gave him sparkling cider. And then he sprayed sparkling cider. I'm like, do not spray sparkling cider on me in the desert.
Well, yeah, but the champagne is just as bad.
Can you imagine all the ants that'll be there in the morning?
So gross. It's so gross.
Oh, Rory Connell has entered the chat.
Got one more. So sorry about that. My bad.
Are you going to say hi or just stand there?
Hi there. Nice to see you. This is my cousin Sean. Adopted cousin Sean.
Yeah, this is my cousin.
Adopted cousin.
Identical cousins, that's the way. They walk alike, they talk alike, sometimes they even laugh alike. Patty Duke Show, come on.
It's funny.
100% just aged myself.
And you've been drinking all day with that champagne you've been soaking in, right?
I haven't. I've had half a beer.
All right,
Half a beer.
She's from the high desert, dude. The rest of
But she has all of her teeth, so she's not from here originally. All right, good job today.
Thank you.
Have a great time with the rest of the thing. I will not see you after this. I just want to come by and say you did a good job.
Oh, thank you. That's so nice. So live show is happening the whole week. We've got all kinds of activities and races planned. So you can find that at kingofthehammers.com. Also on the YouTubes. It's going to be really fun.
All right, this comes out Monday. So this King of the Hammers will be going on as you guys hear this interview. So follow Emmy and, I don't know, say a bunch of rude comments online or tell her to say mounted parameters on the feed or something funny like that.
Yeah, if you guys comment on YouTube, I do go through and check the YouTube comments. And if someone makes it funny, I might repeat it.
All right. I guess the Truck Show podcast audience has a homework assignment.
Yeah, buddy!
Fun tonight at the
So great to see all my friends at KOH. A few Truck Show podcast fans saw me walking around. That was pretty cool. So thank you to you guys for saying hi. And if you're listening to the podcast right now, it's still going on, so you can live stream the rest of the week. There's so much stuff. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So make sure you head over to kingofthehammers.com and you can check out the live stream and all that stuff. So super rad, great event. And next up, well, it's going to be another edition of What's in Holman's Driveway.
What's in Holman's driveway? What could it be? Is it a Nissan, a Ford, or maybe a GMC? Is that a Chevy, a Jeep, or a Ram that you see? Or maybe a Toyota, a Tesla, a Rivian to drive for free? It must be gas, diesel, or electricity. How'd he get so lucky to get those keys? In Holman's driveway, vehicles just appear. It's all up there.
So yeah, always cool to have a new vehicle in the driveway. I've had a slew of them lately, and so I figured we'll just go through each of them every week. We'll do a new one. So this week was something cool and brand new. So let's find out what was in my driveway. All right, who wants to guess what's in Holman's driveway? I am in a brand new 2025 truck. So let me fire it up here. See if you can figure out what I'm driving. All right, I'm going to pull out here. And I'm sure as soon as I hit the blinker, you guys are going to go, oh, I know what that is. I drive that every day. So pretty quiet, at least when it's not running. Could you tell by the blinker what that was? All right, I'll give it up. It's a 2025 Chevy Colorado ZR2. So this is a crew cab, four-wheel drive. So that's basically the only version it comes in. And the Monroney on this, it starts at $49,600, and that's before the $1,595 destination charge. This one also has the $1,450 technology package, so HD surround vision, Bose premium audio, rear pedestrian alert, adaptive cruise control, and also has the sunroof, which I wouldn't get. That's $1,000. Don't need it on an off-road truck. Oh, and auto start stop. So of course I'm going to turn that off because I hate it. And then this has the radiant red tint coat for $495, which is freaking amazing. I love this truck in the sun. It's the color I would get. The interior on this truck is really, really nice. It's got charcoals and grays, and it has like a sort of like a carbon fiber, crushed carbon fiber, not a weave style pattern in the plastic. It's really cool. So the out the door price for this is $64,340. I know, for a midsize truck, and I was just bitching about $77,000 for a half ton, but I really like this truck, and so I'll walk you through why. On the AV package, it's $11,700. They're offering $1,500 off, so that makes it $10,200. If you think about it, for $10,002, you get upgraded to 35-inch tires, which is a big deal. You get the AV extended wheel flares. You get the Multimatic, not only the Multimatic shocks that come with the standard ZR2, but you get the Jounce shocks, which are like air bumps front and rear for Jounce control, which work really awesome. You get the bed-mounted vertical spare tire, which is funny because people always ask me, they're like, hey, Sean, why would you put the spare in the back? It blocks your vision. I'm like, well, I drive a Jeep, so that's always an issue for me. It's not a big deal. AV front and rear bumpers, 17-inch beadlock capable wheels. By the way, the spare is matching tire, matching AV wheel. You also get the AV skid plate for the fuel tank, which you don't necessarily get elsewhere. So there's a bunch of AV stuff. Plus you get the extra skid plates, the embroidered headrests, all that stuff, the floor mats. So let me merge here. So this is powered by the turbocharged 2.7 liter 4-cylinder. This is in the Silverado also. This is the high output version. So it's 310 horse, 430 pound-feet of torque, which sounds really healthy on paper, and it is pretty healthy. We'll get into that in a second. So back to the AV package. You guys know I'm a big fan of AV. The quality of the product is great. The capability is great. Why am I okay with a $65,000 midsize, but I hated the $77,000 half ton? The real reason is because you could not spend $10,000 in the aftermarket with labor and get all the things you get on this, plus the warranty. This truck is ready to go out of the box. And also having the spare mounted vertically in the bed, yeah, you lose some bed space, but you gain a tremendous amount of space behind the rear axle under the bed, where you could put, a water tank, you could put a house battery, something like that. I mean, there's a lot of options there for overlanding and things like that. This truck is a little desert romper, which is super awesome. I like it a lot. So let's talk about it. 35-inch tires. It's the only midsize to have it. Even the Ranger Raptor and the TRD Pro are only at 33s. Even that Rebel X was at 33s. So if you're going to modify it, this is the best out-of-the-box, high-end midsize truck that you can get, bar none. Next would probably be the Ranger Raptor. I love the Ranger Raptor. I just wish it had 35s. And then the TRD Pro, also an awesome option. I know there's a lot of Toyota guys out there. Right now I'm cruising on the freeway, doing about 73, 74 miles an hour, 1650, 1700 RPM. This turbocharged 4-cylinder is backed by GM's 8-speed transmission. If you remember, this transmission, when it came out in the full-size trucks, kind of had a lot of problems. It feels really well dialed in this truck, so I like that about it. This truck's definitely not as quiet as the Ram. Suspension tuning is really good, but it's more of that taut feel where it feels firm but not uncomfortable. It still has give, but it corners flat, it handles really nice, the tuning's great, all the AAV accessories are great. Again, big fan. So what are some of the things I don't necessarily love about this truck? Well, one is on these Goodyear tires, directional stability is not super great. There's always a little bit of constant steering wheel, correction that you need to feed into it. And there's a few other things. I'll get into drivability in just a second. Steering is nice and heavy. The steering wheel's fat. It feels really good in the hand. That's great. Brakes on this truck feel fantastic, and the brake pedal at the top needs very little travel to really feel the brakes, and GM always have come with kind of mushy brakes. Traditionally, they've gotten a lot better in the last 5+ years, in the last few platforms. This truck feels great brake-wise, steering, handling, all that. All that's a winner. The thing that I'm not super in love with is GM, in its infinite wisdom, equipped all the Colorados with a 342 gear. And what's the problem with a 342 gear? Is it makes the pedal input feel kind of sluggish and lazy, and wooden, if you will. I don't love that about it. This truck is begging for a set of 410 gears. I think if this truck had 410 gears, it would be phenomenal. The 430 pound-feet of torque on the freeway right now, as I'm just cruising down the freeway, it's great. Once you're moving, it's great. Stop and go traffic, around town, it just feels like you got to dip into it a lot. I think gears would be awesome. I don't know anybody in the aftermarket making gears yet. I hope AEV would consider that. I don't even know if the speedometer could be calibrated at this point. I know it was locked out on a lot of the GM trucks where you couldn't even tell it that it had gears and bigger tires. So I don't love that about it. In fact, while the engine feels really good, it's a little raspy at higher RPMs, like if I punch it now. But it pulls nicely. It's really that kind of stop and go where you notice the gear ratio on it. I really wish the Ranger Raptor, which is way more lively, I wish that V6 was in this platform, because it would make this truck great. I wish GM had given owners the option of something bigger than the 4-cylinder. The problem is that with the 4-cylinder, you have the power, but you're not really getting any gains in fuel economy. For instance, even with the 342 gear, I've been driving around for 250 miles so far on this tank, and the problem is I'm only doing about 14 miles per gallon, and that's mixed driving. It's rated at 16 highway, 16 city, 16 average. So even at that, it's like not great. Why not just have a V6, right? Like, why not just have a slightly better engine? So from that standpoint, I think this truck would be served with gears. That would be my biggest complaint about it. Overall, the interior and everything else about this truck over the last generation Colorado is immensely better. Build quality feels better. The look is fantastic. The 35s look amazing. The wide bulging fenders with those bigger AEV fender flares, awesome. Love all that. View over the hood's a little bit compromised because they have this kind of like wavy double power dome thing going on. So that front left corner from the driver's seat is blocked off a little bit. The hood kind of rises up a little bit. But those are nitpicky things, That's kind of what I get paid to do, right? Is to nitpick things. So most people would get in this truck and they would be like, "That's awesome." Is it worth the price of admission at $65,000? I don't think any midsize truck. I mean, $65,000. I know we're getting really expensive, but on this truck, I would say it is, just because you get 100% off-roading capability out of the box. Whereas the Rebel X, I would want to put maybe taller suspension on it. I'd want to fit a minimum of a 35-inch tire. This has all that stuff. So at $65,000, again, I get the warranty, and for $10,000, I couldn't duplicate that in the aftermarket. So I think that's what makes this truck a little bit better and a little bit more special. So I love that about it. The look is awesome. Everybody's been like, dude, that truck looks so dialed, especially with this red tint coat. Man, it's so good. It rides really nice. It's quiet enough. Definitely way quieter than, say, my Jeep, but it's a notch below, you know, the Ram and the half tons, which have done a lot to really mellow things out. The screens on this are really nice, but Chevy did something that I'm a big fan of, and there's a ton of hard buttons. All the climate controls, hard buttons, steering wheel buttons are great, and then everything to activate the front and rear lockers, turn off auto start stop, lane keep assist, your aux power, your global windshield or windows down, all of that stuff. They're all like rocker switches. So I love having those physical buttons, and that just makes this truck that much better. Interior quality is really nice. Seat comfort's great. This has this kind of great charcoal with like a lighter gray and this like, you know, carbon fiber. This is like the crushed carbon fiber or pressure set carbon fiber look to it, not the weave. So it's a more modern take. It almost looks kind of like multicam a little bit, which I think is pretty cool. So we're going to get off the freeway here. Just want you guys to be able to hear the noise. So hopefully you can hear that. So it's pretty quiet. The stereo on here is really nice, and again, the Multimatic shocks, especially off-road, they really shine. Some people might feel it's a little bit firm as far as how it feels on the highway, but the second you take it off-road, these shocks come alive. Like, you really have to take this truck off-road and experience it to understand just how good it is. And the AEV bumpers are phenomenal. Even the rear bumper has the cast iron toe points on it. It's designed to do real recoveries. Overall, I am a huge fan of this truck. I think it's one of the best buys that are out there, especially for all the equipment you get. But again, $65,000, that's a lot of cash for somebody looking for a midsize truck. Now, if you don't need a full-size truck and you want a full-featured smaller truck, you probably look at this and go, oh no, this thing it's awesome. It's exactly what I was looking for. All right, I'm going to accelerate here. I'm going to get back on the freeway here in just a moment. You guys can hear the 4-cylinder. It's a little bit, you know, I'm not going to say rough, but it's not the sweetest sounding engine, but it also doesn't sound bad either. It's just a little bit more coarse in its note at higher RPM. Take it around the roundabout here. All right, and we're accelerating. So that's about 70, getting on the freeway from about 40. It's responsive at, you know, the higher speeds, again, when you don't need to get off the line. But 410 gears would be all the difference. The other weird thing about this truck that's kind of annoying, I mean, I guess you don't really notice it. It just, I don't know, it bugs me. The fact that the headlight controls are in the screen and there's no physical knob for that. That's been one of those weird little Colorado things that I've hated since they came out with this generation. Because if your screen ever goes down, like, where's your backup? And I have had modern vehicles where the screen went out, and like, you know, Land Rover, Defender. Well, all the four-wheel drive controls are in the screen. I've had one of those go out, and then you don't have control of your four-wheel drive. Fortunately for everything else, this has physical buttons. But why take out the headlight switch? I don't know. It just seems kind of weird. Plenty of room in the back. This is a great family vehicle for a family of 4. Everybody would be comfortable. And the design of the dash is really good. The big round registers throw out a lot of air. The only thing about the way the air vents are set up that I don't really love is the fact that underneath the center stack, in order to make that screen pretty big, and this is like a larger landscape screen, not portrait like it is on the Ranger, is that they put the HVAC or vent registers underneath the screen. So if you're sitting here on a hot day or on a cold day, on the outsides you have these great big round vents that are super bitching for getting, air and directed where it needs to be and comfortable. Even the rear seat has vents. But what happens is the air vents that are underneath the climate control hit your hand right where you're resting it. So this has a shifter, like a traditional Prindle shifter, and it's at the perfect height. So the armrest is the perfect height, the cup holders are big, and you rest the palm of your hand right on that shifter. The problem is if it's really warm outside and you have the AC on full blast, or if it's really cold and you have the heat, that middle vent blows right on your hand. So you basically have one really hot or really cold hand no matter what you do. And that was a compromise that they had to make in order to get the screen in there. So I get it. It's just, it's those little things. Like once you start driving it, you're like, well, that's kind of weird. But other than that, I think this truck is really good. I think that if you're interested in this, you should go take a test drive. And the AEV stuff just elevates it to the next level. The difference with the non-Bison ZR2 is you're at 33-inch tires, which if you drive a Trail Boss or you drive a non-Bison ZR2 with the smaller tires, this engine feels really lively. But with the 35s, you're just slowing it down enough where it's noticeable. So please, Chevy, think about a set of 410 gears in this thing, because I think the enthusiasts would love it. As far as off-road ability, again, front and rear lockers, full skid plating. You don't get that on the ZR2. AEV adds a bunch of skid plates, and it really crawls well. And it's, like I said, plenty of power. Having the Turbo 4 is nice because when you're at altitude, the turbocharger kind of makes up for lack of air density and all that kind of stuff. So if you have any questions that I haven't answered about the 25 Chevy Colorado ZR2 Bison, give me a shout. truckshowpodcast@gmail.com, or you can hit us up in the Podshed Insiders, and I'll be happy to answer any additional questions that you have, both there and also on the air. But this is a winner. I haven't been in one of these in a while, and keep in mind that GMC also has a version of this truck of the Canyon. That would be the AT4X AEV edition, and it's basically the same vehicle as this, although you might appreciate the more traditional styled grille of the GMC. The GMCs look great. Fantastic looking truck. The inside, you get that white, gray, and red interior, which looks nice, but I always wonder, how is it going to show dirt? White's kind of a tough one, right? What else? Full technology, Alexa, Google Suite, CarPlay, Android Auto, all the stuff that you expect. The displays, especially the multifunction display and for the driver, has a lot of different modes. I wish it was a little bit more configurable, because there's a few things where I'm like, okay, I like this screen, I just wish something else was here. But overall, that's pretty good. I would say the only thing distracting about it, especially at night, is when you turn the backlight down, it doesn't have that really crisp, inky black like the Nissan screen does, and I think even the Ford screen's a little bit better. Although it's much better color reproduction than the previous generation, where if you were in CarPlay and you saw the Apple Music app or the Yelp app, it looked pink. At least this reproduces the colors well. It just, because it doesn't have that really inky black, it kind of looks like the black background has a fog over it. It's not dark black. It's dark, but otherwise, seating position's really good. And yeah, I'm getting 14 miles per gallon in mixed driving. So, if I could take that Raptor engine and throw it in here, man, it would be the best thing ever. Or at least gears. I know, I said it 100 times. You guys are going to bust me because I complained about 1,000 times about the $77,000 price of the Ram. But this one's going to be the gears. So anyway, that's it for what's in Holman's driveway. I hope you enjoyed this installment. And the next vehicle I have is, let's see, another, I don't know, $70,000 more than this, something like that, $50,000 more than this. So I can't wait to give you guys a ride in that vehicle. So anyway, we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for coming for a ride along with me. All right, so we haven't done any emails in a while, so I figure let's get caught up on those.
You email? Yeah. I email? Do it. We email? That's right. Everybody email. Type it up. You email? Proofread. I email? Send it. We email? Click it. Everybody email.
All right, got one from our buddy Ray. Says, hello, Sean. If they do pull this off, it begs the question, how useful is a rear winch in the off-roading world? I think if it were very useful, a lot of off-roaders would have them already. Just curious what you think of this Jeep patent and the usefulness of a rear winch. So the link is Jeep reinvents the winch for electric SUVs. And basically it says Jeep's electric vehicles may be able to get you out of a tough spot in a variety of ways. Jeep's patent company, Stellantis, has received a patent for an electric drive motor with an integrated winch, which is kind of cool. Basically, it says the technology will allow an electric vehicle to use its drive motor to also power a bumper-mounted winch that can be used to pull a stuck vehicle. It adds a planetary gearbox to the motor unit that can redirect its power from the wheels to spin a spool for the winch cable installed in the bumper instead. And it notes that all-wheel drive vehicles could potentially have a winch attached to both front and rear motors, so front and rear winches. Ray, rear winches are just as valuable as front winches. I don't think it really matters which side of the vehicle it's mounted on. I've used both. I've seen people with both. I think people would have 2 winches if they could. I guess the real generalization on that would be a front winch is to pull somebody else out, and a rear winch can pull you out, in the sense that a rear winch can pull you backwards out of something, although a front could pull you forward. But the reality is having any type of self-recovery device like a winch on either end of your vehicle is going to be more important than not having it. All right, we got this one from Brian Verco. Says, Ford Ranger Tremor. Holman, what gives? I mean, Ford now has a Tremor trim for most of the vehicles in the lineup, including Super Duty, F-150, Maverick, and even the 2025 Expedition. So why no Tremor model for the 2025 Ford Ranger? Just seems like a missed opportunity to add an additional Tremor model to the lineup, no? You had read the story a few episodes ago about how Ford is wanting to put an emphasis on making exciting vehicles. So I would think that the top of this list would not only be the Raptor branding, but also anything they could promote as a Tremor model. Please share anything you know specifically about why there is not a Ranger Tremor, or your thoughts on why Ford is omitting a Tremor trim level from the new Ranger platform. I mean, make a Ranger Tremor and keep it around $50,000, and it just seems like a natural winner, no? Thank you, Brian from Pennsylvania. Yeah, I would say the Ranger just came out. Give it time. My guess is that you will see a Ranger Tremor. Ford is known for kind of doing the bookends first, right? Their common everyday vehicles and then like their higher end performance vehicle. And then they kind of fill out as the models go on because they want to get, I know we talk about build complexity a lot on the show. And the manufacturer wants to get the plants going well before they start making a bunch of buzz models and stuff. You can see that with Bronco. You can see that with Maverick. You can see that with, I guess Bronco Sport was like that as well. So there's a bunch of different vehicles like that where Ford kind of takes their time rolling out stuff. I'm guessing that Ford Ranger Tremor is coming because the last generation Ranger had it, and it was that really special sweet spot. So it would be like a ZR2 Colorado, or maybe a Trail Boss Colorado, not quite a Bison, right? Because that's more Raptor territory. But somewhere that slots in there. A TRD Sport would be a great example, or a Nissan Frontier Pro 4X, like right in that kind of, not quite like the super trucks of the midsize category, but sort of that everyday, like really good off-road package. I don't think you're going to have to wait long. My guess is that you will see a Ranger Tremor coming by pretty soon. So for those of you who have not joined our Facebook group, Podshed Insiders, you might want to do that. The conversation has been great. In fact, you guys have been helping each other out so much, I'm wondering if you're trying to replace me or not. Some great conversation this week. Travis Voteman wrote, "Good morning, Truck Show Nation," which is funny. Are we a nation? Are we big enough for that? That's kind of cool. So I'm starting my hunt for a newer full-size 3-row SUV to replace my 2014 F-150 EcoBoost. Love my truck, but need the extra room with 2 growing kids. What's everyone's thoughts between the Expedition and Tahoe Yukon? Looking for a 2020 newer, but they all seem to have engine and transmission issues. Alternatively, I've also been looking at second-gen Sequoias, but man, they're hard to find up here in Alaska. And Marshall said, just got done with a week in a 24 Suburban. It was nice. However, the engine failures GM is having in the 6.2 would scare me. So there's that. And Brian Hutchins says, Expedition is the only full-size SUV that can still tilt the second-row seats forward with a car seat install, I believe. Much more family-friendly in that regard. So there's that. I think the new Armada does that. And I know he's looking for probably used, but if it's in your price range, you can swing it, man. I would look at the new Armada. I'm telling you, that thing is really, really impressive. Between the GMs and the Ford, oh, man, that's a tough one. If GM wasn't having the small block issues with the 6.2 right now, that's kind of my favorite. but those things are pretty pricey too. The Expedition's fine. I just always felt like Ford put more effort into the F-150 than they have in the Expedition, and the Expedition's kind of like F-150 SUV light. Maybe that's not fair, but the Expedition, ever since they got rid of the V8, it's just kind of been design-wise. It's I don't know. It doesn't excite me. How about that? All right, Sam Houston says, new truck pricing. So I finally listened to the Ram Rebel X review on my 2-hour commute home today. Yep, Sean Holman, I agree. Prices are freaking insane. It's not only Ram. I had to take the Tundra for a service earlier this week, and my wife came with me. She'll be needing a new vehicle soon, and she likes the 250 series Land Cruiser. We took a test drive, and she really liked it. For S's and giggles, we let them work up the numbers. $72 plus $1,000 sticker for lesser vehicle to my former 2013 200 series, and they refused to come off the inflated MSRP and were willing to give her 50% of trade value on her paid-off Lexus. In short, they wanted her to trade a $62,000 plus and would not budge. Her Lexus would be a reasonable sale at 31 and a fast sale at 25 to 26. Obviously, this dealer thinks it's still 2021. The payment they quoted was more than the mortgage payment on a reasonably nice lakefront house. So I agree. The manufacturers and dealers have gotten way the hell too greedy, and prices are simply insane. I hope that vehicle prices and incomes will come back in line, but I'm not optimistic. This will age me, but it kills me that I'm driving a Tundra, a low-end SR5 that costs more than my first house. Yeah, I admit it. I sound like a boomer. Might be one, but damn. Would be interested to see if I stand alone or if others think this is crazy. And you guys had a bunch of great comments on there. I mean, you guys know how I feel about that. Join the Podshed Insiders to see all the great comments. All right, so one more from the Podshed Insiders. Brian Hutchins asked, how many miles is too many on a used truck? I'm potentially going to be in the market for a used truck here coming up, but my budget isn't huge. I'm hoping to get something newer that has CarPlay and a little more creature comforts than my 2003 Expedition. Based on the budget constraints, as well as the list of features I want, it definitely puts me in the higher mileage range, 100K, sometimes even 150K on these late model trucks. Is there a limit to how high you'd go? Lots of great comments on there. Again, I am of the thought that I would not personally go above 100K on a used vehicle because you want some life left in it. And you may find a high mileage, newer vehicle that somebody just drove on the highway that has very little wear on it. And that'd be great. And then you have some 100K stuff that's just falling apart. You get to 150K, that's a lot of mileage. So for me personally, I wouldn't go over 100K on a used vehicle. I'm more comfortable at 75 to 90 or even under 50, to be honest. I'm kind of spoiled that way. But I understand, you want something newer. Sometimes miles are the trade-off. I just, newer vehicles, they just don't seem to last as long as they used to. So, I was just driving a vehicle that I'll talk about in a future episode. And I got to thinking all the sensors, the tech, the screens, everything on it, like what's that vehicle going to be like in 15 years? I don't know the answer to that. Definitely makes me wonder. All right, so before we wrap up, we did get a few comments this week on our Spotify. So head on over to Spotify where you can not only listen to the Truck Show podcast and leave a review, but you can also leave comments. I'm always looking at comments that you guys leave on the different episodes. So Dave Rasmussen writes on season 3, episode 6, which is the truck news. He says, another great show. So, Dave, I really appreciate that. Thank you for leaving that comment. He also left on the Chance Lord episode, yeah, buddy. And Kay writes, that's right, I'm listening to this at 4:30 a.m. Monday. Love me some early morning truck show. If you guys are listening at 4:30 a.m. on Monday, which is East Coast time, I'm assuming, that's because I put it up at like 2 a.m., 1 a.m., I guess 1 a.m., 1:30. A lot of times I get that up, and it's funny. I'll start seeing downloads right away, and I always wonder who you guys are. Somebody had written that they were already listening to it, and I hadn't gone to bed yet after I got it up. And I'm like, you might be the first person listening to this show. Also, Kay writes, man, I wish Emmy could host more often. She's great. That's on the Dakar Rally and Emmy Hall episode. And Zach946 says, yeah, buddy, love this off-road racing content. So I'm glad that's really resonating with you guys. Keep leaving those comments because I read all of them. And to me, honestly, it's great to hear that feedback from you guys. It makes me happy. All right, so thanks to everybody for interacting with the Truck Show podcast, whether it's on Spotify or truckshowpodcast@gmail.com or the Podshed Insiders. I read them all. I love it. Thank you.
The Truck Show, the Truck Show, the Truck Show, oh, oh.
And don't forget to follow us on social at Truck Show Podcast, on Facebook, on Instagram. Dave Graham, once again, he's been putting up a bunch of reels that have been doing really well for us. So please keep interacting with us there. Don't forget the 5-star hotline. I want to hear from you guys. 657-205-6105. I think we'll be able to place them on the next episode. Again, join the Facebook group, the Podshed Insiders. There's so much awesome content in there that you guys are creating and giving me great show ideas. So please go over there and get involved. I think we have like 250 members, so that's pretty cool. And I've been starting to get more events, so please keep that coming. Holman at truckshowpodcast.com or truckshowpodcast@gmail.com. Please send me your events. I'm going to start getting that up within the next couple of weeks. So, and I want your feedback, whether it's on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Just want to hear from you guys. All right, got to thank our show sponsors. Truck Show Podcast is presented by Nissan. Nissan's been amazing for the show. They make an amazing product. Please check them out. Also, AMSOIL, the first in synthetics. If you love your truck and we're talking about high mileage and used vehicles, guess what? You're going to get there a lot more easily if you're using AMSOIL products on it. I guarantee you that. Also got to thank our friends over at EGR USA. Man, that roll track. If you guys haven't seen one of those in person, literally freaking amazing. The quality on that is unbelievable. It's better than OE in some cases. I mean, it's that good. So if you're looking for a tonneau, that's the one to get. Go check out your roll track, egrusa.com. And of course, Kershaw Knives. Kershaw Knives has been a great partner, and I keep getting texts and messages and DMs from people, hey, check out my new knife I got. So don't forget, we have the Truck Show Podcast discount code. If you are ever wondering about discount codes, either from our guests or just in general or from our sponsors, head over to truckshowpodcast.com to the featured product section, and then I have all that stuff listed in there. So if you ever hear something on the show and you forget about it, don't worry. You can find it on our website. So don't forget to do that. And send me your Know Your Notes, because I've got a few banked, but I want to do Know Your Note with you guys on a live episode. So if you guys think about it, share a little Know Your Note with me. I've also been recording some on my own too, so I'll have some. But I think we'll have fun. We'll do a Truck Show Podcast and a whiskey party or something like that. Well, I guess that does it for this episode of the Truck Show Podcast. Thank you again for supporting me, supporting the show, supporting our sponsors. Don't forget to share the show with a friend, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.
The Truck Show Podcast is a production of Truck Famous LLC. This podcast was created by Sean Holman and Jay Tillis, hosted by Sean Holman, and uses production elements by DJ Omar Khan and Jay Tillis. If you like what you've heard, please open your Apple Podcast or Spotify app and leave us a 5-star review. And if you're a fan, there's no better way to support the show than by sharing it and patronizing our sponsors. Some vehicles may have been harmed during the making of this podcast.
Emmy, we're counting on you.
Yeah, buddy.